probably the thing that you're maybe most known for is the 8.6 Blackout.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of an evolution of the 300 Blackout.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So to make a super long story short, Kevin does AAC when he's 19. Ethan Lassard, who's kind of the head of our special projects and head of our engineering department, he worked at AAC as well. He helped develop 300 Blackout. We've talked about it before with the Noveski connection. Kevin and Johnny were just really good friends. They were probably basically best friends. I believe Kevin gave Johnny's eulogy at his funeral, and we have a good relationship with Noveski to this day. So I believe Johnny made Kevin a 300 Whisper bolt gun, and it just happened to be at the same time that Kevin was working with JD Jones on 300 Whisper to try to replace the MP5 SD and 9mm for SOCOM. So 8.6 comes in because of 300 Blackout. So
what time frame was this?
Early 2000. 300 Blackout. I want to say it was mid 2000. It was pre 2010. It was like.
I'm just thinking about phasing out the MP5 and stuff, because you see MP5s everywhere through the 80s and 90s
for sure.
and SOCOM, and then as you get into the GWAT, they kind of disappear a little bit.
Yeah, so
you got like 10-inch. You got the 10-inch barrels and things like that coming into. You've got some stuff coming from Daniel Defense and some systems, things like that, and so things were kind of the idea of a small rifle, assault rifle, was changing. Yeah,
and that whole thing. I mean, if you ask guys that were. I mean, he was working with tier 1 elements within US SOCOM, both on the Navy and Army side. And essentially an MP5 SD, if you grab it, it's an 8-pound gun that effectively is shooting 380, because people don't understand SD. They think if a can is tucked under a handguard, it's an SD. An actual integrally suppressed SD gun, you port the barrel. So it's taking all 9mm rounds, whether they're supersonic or subsonic, and it's making them subsonic because you're porting a bunch of the gas. So you cover those ports with a can. It makes it super quiet, but you're losing that velocity.
So, and yeah, this is where we get into some things that I'm not super familiar with, but I'm very curious about. So something in a system like that, you can take non-subsonic ammunition and it's going to behave like, as far as the effects, it's going to behave like subsonic ammunition.
Yeah. So you have that short barrel and you're porting a lot of that gas immediately before it even leaves. So like basically at where your barrel meets where you would have a barrel extension, where your barrel is meeting the receiver, there's a bunch of ports around it. And so the bullet's traveling through, it's porting a lot of the gas, which makes it slower. So you're losing that velocity that you would have. Then, I mean, in turn, it's making it quieter because you're not getting that supersonic crack. And you now have this can that's over it, the silencer. So, but because of that, you're taking a normal powered 9mm and neutering it, regardless of grain weight or XYZ. And obviously, the heavier you go, the slower it's going to go. Just science. But and 300 Blackout, AAC, basically the need was they wanted to change the caliber, but there wasn't necessarily a platform change or whatever. And what's cool about Kevin and Ethan, and we see it with Q, and I can explain it later with our products, is the way that a military solicitation works is a lot of times they'll come to you and just say, here's the requirement. And what Ethan and Kevin are great at doing is meeting that requirement and also showing them, hey, this is what you think you need. This is what you actually need. It's meeting your requirement and then some, and we'll show you why you need it. And that's, I mean, if you look at AAC, they've had dozens and dozens and dozens of contracts. I mean, at the highest level in the Navy right now, they're still running AAC cans. So it's like they very much know what they're doing in that regard. So what's cool about that is it gave Kevin the opportunity. They did the caliber and they did a platform, being the Honey Badger. So if you take the Honey Badger and compare it to an MP5 SD, it weighs like 3 pounds less than an MP5 SD, and it gives you full rifle capabilities. So you get super and subsonic rounds, that 300 Blackout. So essentially, like supersonic's like a 30-30, and then subsonic is you're shooting a 200 to 220 grain bullet. So your terminal effect is exponentially greater than that 9mm. So for those tier 1 operators, it gives them the ability to do, whether they want to do full mags and just label them differently, or do like 4 or 5 subs on top of supers, go inside of a structure, do whatever they need to do. If they're leaving the structure and buddy's shooting at them from down the street, they're not outgunned anymore. They still have a rifle capability. So it gave them the ability to fight inside, outside, and with a platform that's not as cumbersome. We have a Honey Badger. I can pull a Honey Badger out. And
what does this thing look like?
So This is the modern iteration of the Honey Badger.
Mm-hmm.
It's very similar to what AAC did. The only difference between this one and the SD is that the SD has an 1.5 inch outer diameter can that direct threads, and we just put a can or a handguard over it. It is not integrally suppressed. It never has been. The can is always
this rail just extends out.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it looks really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some benefit to having that as well. But this is the standard Honey Badger that you can get right now from Q in 300 Blackout. And this is one of our newer cans. It's an all steel can, but we can get into it as far as innovation, all that goes. And engineering, this all steel can weighs the same as our titanium cans.
Really?
And I can probably
does this thing pop off?
Yeah, and I can talk about the muzzle attachment too, which is another huge thing. So our whole Q's, the impetus behind everything is we create systems.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just the can, it's not just the gun, it's not whatever. We create the entire system, and we do it to the best of our ability. And we try to create the next best thing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it is at the request of, SOCOM and special operations abroad as well. But so this is an all steel can, and it weighs, I don't know, 11 ounces, 12 ounces.
That's insane.
So if you were to compare that to like Knight's Armament has steel and Inconel cans, or
and this is called the Blind Tiger.
That one's the Blind Tiger, yeah. And the longer of the two is the Speakeasy. So a Blind Tiger is literally just a British Speakeasy.
Yeah, I mean, this looks like it should weigh more than what it does.
Yep.
That's crazy. And yeah, and it's threaded on. There's no like janky quick detach clip that rattles around. Like this is I assume a pretty quiet platform to run.
Absolutely, yeah. And so for us, kind of a lot of our stuff is everything you need, nothing you don't. So, with the MP5s, like 3-lug, or people call it tri-lug.
Mm-hmm.
It's convenient, but it's heavier and there's more things that can go wrong. With a latch or a gate or whatever, there's just more parts and more things that can go wrong. You have more tolerances, all that. So what we do, especially with our muzzle devices, so we taper our barrels. A lot of people will go, oh, that's interesting. SIG tapered their barrels too. That was Ethan and Kevin. When Kevin sold AAC, they both ended up back at SIG. So like the MCX, the MPX, they have a tapered muzzle.
Gotcha.
They did it while they were at SIG. So we do a tapered muzzle, and then the inside of this cherry bomb, which is our muzzle device, is tapered as well. And then if you look here, you have a taper right here.
Mm-hmm.
And so the tapers do a bunch of things. We did not create it. Machinists have been using tapers for centuries, but it helps with alignment. So the concentricity between your bore, the muzzle device, and the can, everything is going to be aligned.
Mm-hmm.
And also the tapers, if you match your threads to your tapers, that taper locks itself up. So it requires 20% more torque to remove than to put on. So a big issue with cans is you tighten your can down, shoot it a bunch, and the heat and the vibration will cause it to walk off, and you'll get a loose can. That's when you start getting baffle strikes, end cap strikes, or the can just shoots off. That won't happen with this because of those tapers. So the inside of this matches this matches this. So it's very simple. It allows us to not have to use any adhesives or shims or anything like that. Again, shims, adhesives, all things that can mess with your alignment. I believe it was at AAC. I want to say it was Ethan. I'll give Ethan the credit because Kevin gets enough credit. So they did a trick. I don't know if it was actually a Surefire muzzle device. I believe it was, but if you buy a Surefire muzzle device right now, like a War Comp, it'll come with a bunch of little washers, little shims that each have just a little strip of magic marker on them in different colors to differentiate thicknesses. They decided, let's put all of the shims on, put all the magic marker at 12 o'clock and just see if the tolerance from the magic marker builds up. So they do that, torque it down, put the can on. And I believe at the muzzle, they had 30 thou of deflection, which is significant. That's how you start getting end cap strikes, baffle strikes, all that. And that's just from the buildup of the magic marker over time. It allowed 30 thou of deflection at the end. So that's why we don't like shims, crush washers, even adhesives. Guys will throw adhesives on and then lay their gun down, let it sit, and all of that just drips into one side or pools into one side. And that realistically can, especially as it heats up and starts shifting around, it can cause misalignment. So we don't want that. We don't want to have to worry about cans walking off. Also, if you notice, like we shoot this is all carbon on here, but your threads are all fine because we seal it off with that taper. So initially at AAC, they put the taper behind the threads, and Kevin realized, oops, we're getting carbon lock. So these cans aren't going to carbon lock on. They're going to stay aligned. Another thing that we do at Q, which I'm surprised most companies don't do this. SIG did it, but we wire EDM these bores. So they come in, the baffles come in undersized. We stack them all up, weld them, whatever. The bores are undersized, and we screw them onto a mock muzzle or muzzle device, depending on if it's direct thread or whatever. Then we wire EDM them to that muzzle device. So we get the proper bore size, and it's aligned with the muzzle. So you have proper alignment all the way through. It's expensive and it takes a lot of time. So I understand companies not doing it, but it is the right way to do things for sure. But yeah, I mean, the Honey Badger, that's on all of our muzzles, whether it's bolt guns, gas guns, any of that. The Honey Badger, a lot of people think, oh, it's just another AR-15. It is not. The recoil system is entirely different. We spin these barrels 1 in 5. It's a 300 Blackout barrel. So it's a 7-inch 300 Blackout barrel that we spin 1 in 5, and we'll get all into, especially with 8.6, we'll get into the fast spin and all that. But I mean, this gun weighs 4.5 pounds. I've obviously got an EOTech on it and then a can, but you know, this is, a lot of people don't realize too, like you take an MP7, it's the same size as this.
Really?
And an MP7 is notoriously not great at killing things. It's cool. It's a cool gun. It's light. It's compact. It's the same size as this.
Yeah. And what's interesting too is like you guys have a chunky selector switch. You have like, it's chunky in the places that you want it,
right? And
just really slim, sexy everywhere else.
Yeah. Like even like we machine the receiver. So like you're not getting snagged on these, like if you look at the Maxim ones or Daniel Defense, whatever, these arms stick out. You can catch stuff in there. Radian was doing these these charging handles for us. They're a little more narrow and they're rounded, so they're not snagging. People complain about this being a 2-position stock. It's either closed or open, but the group of people that wanted them said, hey, it's in or out. Like the original ones, you could just pull them through. You didn't have to hit the button, but over time they wobble. We do a 70-degree selector on our gas guns because we spent the time and did the testing. And we realized that through all of the drop testing, we found that 70 is the shallowest you can go while always being safe. So 45 is a lot of people like that. Like, 45-degree selector and this and that. But it's not safe. It might be in your gun, but it's not. Yeah,
that's interesting because when you start to sort of mess with things that are muscle memory type things, it always raises eyebrows a little bit. When I was in the military, we were one of the first units to be fielded and take to combat the FN SCAR, the Mark 16 and the Mark 17. And, you know, one of the big sort of concerns around that was the fact that it had that like charging handle on the side there, and you're getting away from the muscle memory of guys that have built out over thousands and thousands of rounds. And now you're changing it, especially in a life or death situation. And so this isn't the same as that. And I think it's less dramatic than that.
For sure.
But it is a thing, like guys are really used to that, like having that at a perfect. Did you guys get any feedback on that as far as like not a problem, was a problem?
70 is really similar to 90. The 45 is definitely a civilian thing, 45 degree, that for whatever reason, like, oh, it's quicker on and off. We have 45 on the bolt guns and it's fine. The reason I like it on the bolt gun is because I lazy thumb when I shoot precision. So I keep my thumb on, and at 45, it's a nice, perfect little ledge for my finger, whatever. But, no, we didn't really get any. It's quicker technically because it's 20 degrees shorter, but it's still close enough that the guys that are used to that 90, it won't throw them off. The recoil system is an entirely different thing. So it rides on, there's a guide rod in here, and there's a plug that sits in the back of the bolt carrier, and it rides down that guide rod similar to like a pistol. So it's a direct impingement gun, not a piston, but it rides on that recoil system, and that allows, so like when you shoot it, you don't hear if you're used to shooting like a standard M4 or even the old M16s, you could hear the buffer inside the stock. You don't get that with this just because of how it works. We also, I'm going to send the bolt home. These have our 2-piece bolt carrier on them. So one thing that people don't realize, I'm going to drop that mag. One thing people don't realize is that there's like 3 companies that make bolt carriers right now, like mil-spec bolt carriers for the entire industry. And during COVID, I
didn't know that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of spooky secrets in the industry that people don't necessarily know. But during COVID, you're buying mil-spec bolt carrier groups, and they'd come in, we'd check them, and they're not mil-spec. So we couldn't get them. We couldn't get them proper. And we said, screw it, we'll make our own. So we do a 2-piece bolt carrier, which is cool because the Honey Badger bolt carrier group is a little different than a mil-spec. It's shorter and it has some other little differences. But what this allows you to do is, in theory, you could pull this out of this gun, pop that one pin, take the back end off, put a standard mil-spec rear end on there, and then go run it in your Sugar Weasel or any standard ARM4. The front end, all of your wear pieces, like your bolt, your gas key, your cam pin, all these, it's all mil-spec. So if for any of the parts that would go wrong, whether it be your gas rings or your bolt, whatever, you can replace those easily. It's not proprietary. The system is proprietary, but the parts are not. And that stemmed from, we had issues getting parts, and also there were improvements that we wanted to make. So a lot of people they talk about the Honey Badger and go, oh, it has bolt bounce, like from back in the day. One, you don't shoot fast enough for bolt bounce to matter, I promise. Two, you probably don't own a machine gun. Three, it doesn't matter. So, but that was one thing we thought about, and I'll pull the boombox apart and show you because it's the same recoil system, but this is an older one, so it's a pain to get back together. But we have now a plug that basically is a dead blow hammer in the back end of the recoil system, or the bolt carrier group. So it alleviates bolt bounce. Like all these things that technically do matter, but as a civilian don't really matter. Mm-hmm. We fixed. And that whole gun, everything, it's crazy because people think like, oh, you're just a gun company that's printing out new guns or whatever. Each thing is its own system and its own book of problems and issues. And
this is why I wanted to have you on, because like, hey, look, we're talking about products here and things like that. Like this isn't some sponsored segment by Q or anything like that. Like what you guys are doing is genuinely innovative. Yeah. It's a very highly technical field. Like for people that aren't into guns, firearms, this whole world, like this is stuff that, when innovation comes, it's kind of a big deal because you're right. And especially because the industry is kind of entrenched in a lot of different things. Like you said, like rifle twist and things like that just really was never messed with. And so when you guys are just completely hey, starting from scratch, throw everything that you know about a rifle out, a silencer out, and like, let's just start over. Like, that's why I want to talk about this, is because you guys are building entire systems here that are unique.
Yeah, absolutely.
These are very unique.
Yeah, and I mean, the closest thing, we offer the Sugar Weasel, which we used to call the poor man's Honey Badger, and it really isn't. It's a high-end AR, and that's more mil-spec. The front end is all the same. You're getting the Honey Badger, so you're getting, for what you pay for that gun, I think right now it's $1,700, you're getting a ton of features. You're getting the adjustable gas block, the tapered muzzle, cherry bomb, you're getting the fast twist barrel, the mounting system that we use. We're getting all these features, 2-piece bullet carrier, the trigger, again, naming, we called it literally the best trigger ever made, so that if you wrote a bad review on it, you still had to call it literally the best trigger ever made.
Is that trademarked?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. I'm gonna start calling this the best podcast ever made.
Yeah. So if someone writes a bad review, they still have to call it the best podcast ever made. So you get all these features that if you were to build your own gun with media or like mid-range parts, you would still be in at the same price, and they wouldn't have half the feature set that you get. So, but aside from that, this is the closest to like, oh, it's a 300 Blackout AR. Like, sure, but it's not, the entire, and sometimes the word proprietary can throw people off because they're like, HK parts, like a 416, you jack up your 416, you're screwed. You have to go to HK to fix it, whatever. Sure. But also like there's so many, you can interchange parts in here if you need to. But this is not a standard AR, like just the stripped receiver sets. Like we don't have the footprint right now to manufacture, like actually machine all of our parts. So like receiver sets, we have to outsource most to local vendors. And there was a period of time where we were paying more for just the stripped receiver sets. Our cost, we paid more than you could go buy a complete AR for.
Really?
And that's just because of like the gun weighs 4.5 pounds. Any other gun that's like that has a skeletonized mag well and grip and this and that. Like that's not how you take weight out. You take weight out of every single part to make it light. In doing that, you have to make sure they work too. So that's the difference. The big thing with like you mentioned the fast twist and this and that. Like the reason that we go into a lot of this, if you wanted to just start a company right now and make guns, you could push out mil-spec guns and print money. Like as long as they're decent and you're getting your parts from the same companies everybody else is, You're going to print money.
Differentiate yourself with brand and don't have to worry about innovating or doing anything crazy.
If you want to innovate, it costs a lot of money and a lot of time. So we're lucky that Kevin's brain is basically like, hey, you're going to fail a bunch, but if you do it right in the end, it's going to work. And he tells us all the time he would rather us fail than talk about it and not go do it. Because if we failed, at least we tried, and we're going to learn something from it, and we'll probably reach the outcome after.
Like tests that you run, like people, everything in life. I firmly believe you learn something from everything. Sometimes it's what to do. Sometimes it's what not to do. For sure.
I mean, we call it literally the best trigger ever made. I like the name, but we also, it was going to be all sorts of, it was going to be the Tallywhacker, the Finger Blaster, it's going to be a bunch of stuff. So we may have missed out, but that trigger alone, like I saw our engineer come in every single day for a year and a half and just drop that trigger. Ain't a gun, but just drop it every day for a year and a half. We could have just done a trigger that based off a design that we know already works and is good to go. It'll be drop safe. Cool. This is the most drop safe AR trigger on the market. You can drop it in any of your standard AR M4 platforms, or boombox, but that took him all of the time, a year and a half that he could have been building coming up with a new product or working on something else or whatever. He spent dropping the gun over and over and over again. We did every single drop test that is there, like ones that are no longer used, ones that are currently used, whatever, so that no matter who the customer is, if they hit us with it has to pass this drop test. Well, we've already done it, so we know it will.
And just for people to have context here, we're not talking about, especially with who some of your customers are, we're not talking about like, I accidentally dropped my rifle. We're talking about guys who rig this up for parachute operations and have to lower their equipment before they land. So this thing is, potentially hitting the ground.
Yeah.
Going at significant speeds with significant force behind it, and it still needs to be able to work when you pull it out of its this is something that you have to take really, really seriously, with, especially again the clientele that you guys have.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, the cool part about that trigger is like before we even brought it to market, we got a contract in the UK for it. So it's like we did all the testing, we know it's going to pass, we give it to this customer. And initially, actually, there's a kind of a funny story with it. Initially, we sent them the whatever the amount was, and in time we get the feedback. Hey, how is it? Is everything good? And they said, yeah, well, the attrition rate is too low though. We're not getting the attrition rate that we normally get. Can you make because we had it even lighter than it was before. Like it's a sick trigger. And like we're not getting the attrition rate. Can you make it? Essentially, can you make it shittier? Like, can you make it a heavier pull? This, that. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. That's easy. We can do that. So what's funny is like we made the trigger too good. The guys were passing their quals, better than
that's
before.
A real thing though, because too light of a trigger, it's like throwing somebody into an F1 car that and they're not an F1 driver.
Absolutely.
Like to have those really light trigger pulls, you have to be a very experienced person. Like even like for me, I don't shoot enough to have a super light trigger. Like,
right.
I think people, they get wrapped up and they want the best spec of everything, not realizing like, man, maybe you ain't there.